I've seen people sitting happily around them. We borrowed them from the canteen, but I think we need to appreciate that our children meet up here every Sunday, and it's not warm enough typically here. I think we should believe God for £200 because each of them costs 99, and live a warmer life up here. Yeah, and they didn't trigger off the fuses, so it's worked well. God bless. As Betty is taking the offering, we'll try and make sure she doesn't cross our camera. Welcome back, those on Facebook. We're going to take another 15 minutes or so just to hopefully finish all this. So are we ready? I know some of you are still munching away. Please do that. We want to move on to power language. I call it power language. Now, this is something especially for people who want to preach more and speak more in public. Please understand that you need to practice the habit of creating powerful, memorable sentences. Powerful, memorable sentences. This is something I devoted myself to personally. And I'm not even saying that I've perfected it. But I realized through the teaching of my pastor at that time at Kensington Temple, Win Lewis. Win Lewis said, "It is criminal for you to be using the English language, one of the richest languages in the earth, and not exploit its power." And he said, why should you use the same word twice when you have options? And he said, a preacher is a craftsman. You are an artist. Don't just say it. Design it. Don't just say design it. And when I talked about how I would prepare a sermon virtually 3 times, even now, you'll see me typing. I'll type a sentence and I'll stop. And I say, no. I need to make that sentence more powerful. So I will go back on it. I will change words. I will swap words around until I feel, yes, that's a power sentence. Power sentence. The more you create power sentences, the more your brain creates power sentences. Yeah? It is so good to listen to somebody speak and feel like they are hand-picking words. Other than just pouring words out of their mouth, they are literally crafting sentences and designing words and choosing phrases like I've just done there. Yeah? Designing words, choosing phrases. The language, the English language is that powerful. It's amazing. But the brain works in a certain way. When you teach it something, it refines it. The more you do something, the more it begins to say, that's what's normal. I will not tolerate anything else. Yeah? So please ensure you become a student of power language. Yeah? You notice, again, when you read quotes, that people write quotable quotes. These are usually very well-crafted sentences that you read and think, wow, that was so well put. That was so well put. I didn't create a lot of examples, but we'll go into that hopefully next week. But make it a habit starting now that when you get up, you're going to create a sentence which did not just fall out of your brain. You actually structured it, you created it, you modeled it. And there are people who are just naturally good at it, but everybody can become good. Pastor Kato does a lot of crafted sentences. Crafted sentences, intentionally written, specifically designed. Yeah. When the Bible says, speak to one another in psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs, Paul is alluding to the fact because a psalm is a written piece of work. It is artistically done. And so he says, speak to one another in psalms. It's like, whoa. We should take time to choose words even when we are speaking to each other. Not just blah, blah, blah. Let words out. When I get on stage, I'm leading service, and I'm just speaking randomly. No, you should design some sentences. because we are challenged to speak to one another in psalms, hymns, spiritual songs. Those are all poetic types of speech. Yeah, I won't labor that. Moving on, movement and gestures. Movement and gestures. Your body has a vocabulary. Ensure you find it and use all of it. Your body has a vocabulary. Now, do you know what percentage of communication is nonverbal? Now, some of you know this. What percentage of your communication is nonverbal? True. 70-80% of our communication is nonverbal. It means your words don't say it unless your face expresses it and your body moves in response to it. We didn't hear you. We may have heard the words, but we didn't believe you. Unless it's spirit, soul, and body. Unless all three aspects are involved, we don't believe you. So we heard you, but we did not believe you. We did not actually hear you. You did not communicate. So from my spirit, what do I create as a speaker? What do I bring? What does your spirit bring? Fire. I like the word fire. Passion. Passion comes from the spirit. What else? Conviction. You can hear somebody and think, this guy's got there's something else behind the words. Something deeper. It's a conviction. It's coming from their spirit man. So these are the things that really cut people's hearts, come from your spirit. So passion, conviction, belief. When you actually believe something, it can be felt because it comes from your spirit man. Then there's the soul. What is in the soul? Mind, will, emotions. So mind is where we're talking about crafting, learning to craft sentences, doing a work of poetry, rhythming and rhyming. Use your brain to create this work that you are going to present. Use your imagination. Then there's will. Will. Use your will. Your determination comes from the will. Commitment comes from the will. You can see someone committed to their text and to their sermon or to whatever they do. There's commitment, no half-heartedness here. I'm committed to this. And then there's emotion. Emotion. So people want to feel a sense of all the three. Is there excitement? Do you carry excitement? When it is sad, do you carry sadness? When it's joy, do you bring joy? To feel your emotional sense in what you are saying. And finally, body, which is what we are talking about, movement and gestures. Honestly, you need to learn how to express through movement, gestures. Of course, there are things that we do with our bodies which are not essential to the message, and those I still battle with. I need to watch myself more. But the more you watch yourself, has anyone of you ever watched yourself speaking publicly? Or even hear yourself, you say, why am I like that? Now there are things now you guys have averaged because I do them all the time. They're now part of your perception of me. Me, when I watch myself, I can't. It's like, what's wrong with him? That guy. It's not even me. Because there are things, you scratch yourself, you touch your nose, and there's no reason. It's not part of the message. It's just your silly subconscious idiosyncrasies. But these are things we had a teacher called Semirembe. Semirembe studied in the UK. And then he came back and he thought he was very posh. And this is how he would speak in class. This is Old Kampala Primary School. That's how he would speak. I said, all of you should lie down because I'm going to cane you. Semirembe had a weird body language. He used to do this. And it had nothing to do with anything other than he would do. It's a silly idiosyncratic thing but we realized it's because he had some big trousers. which did not fit. And so they would slip down, and he's trying to pull them up. And because he has chalk on his hands, he had learned that when I use hands, I end up with chalk on my trousers. So he does that to pull his trousers up. The problem is he's done it so many times, now it's subconscious. Even when the trousers fit, he just goes. You know what I mean? So you end up with all kinds of silly idiosyncrasies because you've done them all your life. But just to be serious, honestly, these are things we watch out and try and deal with because they all become part of our gestures. And sometimes you feel you wish that guy could stop doing that. You wish he could just stop it.
I just wanted to make a comment on that. Does it not depend on the...
Is he scared of the mic? Give him volume there so that the listeners on Facebook can hear your question. Yes?
No, it depends. Does it not depend on the culture that you're...
It's dead for some reason.
The culture
Does it have a switch?
No, it doesn't have a switch.
Okay.
If you go to the Scandinavian countries or like Siberia, where you find people speak without expression, that is the way they are. That's that's their normal way of talking. And I've found myself at times when I'm speaking to them, I'm speaking with a lot of action. I'm using my hands.
Oh yes.
Gestures, and they're looking at
They look weird because it's like the Italianos. Is it the Italians who are very guest?
I'm wondering, what is he doing? What are you doing with your hands? So you find yourself trying to put your hands away because you're antagonizing them or something. So
Yes.
does it not have...
Yeah, there is a bit of cultural thing well pointed out. Like a typical Englishman wants to stand in one place and deliver his stuff. Yeah, but some of these things, not all culture is optimum in its impact. And so, yeah, like you're saying, the Scandinavians, some of the British culture is very stiff. But you see, again, Scandinavia has one of the highest rates of depression in the earth. So, why? Why are they not expressive, emotionally constrained? And because the body is about really emotion. When you're deeply passionate about something, it must touch your body. Yeah, but the point is made that sometimes there's cultural issues there. And, there's this church we used to go to in Kent, Wilmington. They used to love us because we come and we are expressive. And while we are there, we license them to express. So they would be dancing. Once we leave, they go back to we love it when the Africans come because we get a chance to feel expressive and blame it on them. And and when they go, we go back to our normal stiff upper lip sort of culture. But people are desperate for someone to burn in front of them. I think you should be authentic to yourself. The key point is not to leave your audience too far. I'll show that next week. The different speaking positions, that you don't end up alienating your congregation because you are off and you don't care what their culture or passion is like. Yeah, well pointed out. Yeah? Let me point to other things. Mood management. Now, this is something else. But a bit of what you're saying is when you come into a congregation and they're all like, it may be culture, it may be spiritual culture, it may be ethnicity, it may be whatever, but sometimes it's down outright atmosphere. And there's this mood on the congregation. Have you noticed sometimes in church, worship team will tell you, sometimes they come as if they all agreed, like they got a memo. Today, no joy. No worship. And I'm the preacher, I'm feeling it. I'm thinking, I hope the worship team breaks this thing. Because otherwise I inherit it as the preacher. But you see, be a thermostat, not a thermometer. You know the difference? A thermostat sets the temperature. A thermometer picks up the temperature. No, I don't want to come and be contained by a negative mood in this congregation. I can actually smash the mood by how I handle my own slot when I come on. But you as a speaker need to understand where you are now. I went to Rwanda last year, and I was given a room full of, what was 800, 6 to 800 young people. And I came because the place is full. I'm believing this is a vibrant group of young people. There were a few pockets of it, but most of them are just church kids. Just like here, they come to church because Dad brings them. They need to transition into their own personal walk with God and get spirit-filled. So I come up to preach, and I'm used to preaching and getting a response. Now I'm preaching and words are falling to the ground. Preaching and say, talk to your neighbor. They just look at me. One or two talk to their neighbor. They are not used to that. Raise your hand. I just thought, Lord, I need to adjust quickly. Because you can't just bulldoze a mood. You can't bulldoze it. You've got to now appreciate the fact that these guys are in a mood. You don't want to pick it up, but neither can you simply, roughshod it and pretend everything is like. And it was tough. But part of your challenge as a public speaker is to pick up moods and mods and notice mods. Like I said, if the place is on fire, you can't come in as a block of ice. You need, in that case, to catch their fire. Make sure you build on it. But particularly when there is low mod, you need to understand what's going on here and what do I do. Yeah. So you need to be aware of mood and how to break into that. What are some things that can change the mood of a congregation? Humor. But also, talk to your neighbor. I'm giving you 2 minutes, talk to your neighbor.
But the talk to the neighbor can also be a lot.
Can be a what? A lot. When you do a lot, wait a lot. I'm just talking about smashing it through, especially as you're trying to manage, because now the issue is it is them versus you. And people pick it off each other and multiply it off each other. Normally, people are sitting next to somebody who they probably know. There's already rapport going on. So many times, I have found that to lift up the mood of a meeting. Sometimes even like as in get up out of your seat and talk to 2-3 people. It's like, all right then. But somehow, that physical move, that disruption, breaks this consensus of let us sit here and watch you. It breaks that consensus. And you feel it can give you a bit more momentum yourself as well, because at least they responded to something you said. The problem is when you say that and they all refuse to get up. Now you are in so much trouble. Yeah, which is what I'm saying in this case. But when I was asking them to talk to one another, they were just not doing it. But if I had asked them to get up and talk to 2-3 people, they would have responded. But humor, storytelling, those things are big on mood shifting. The rest has got to be God. It just has to be God. Otherwise, things can become so heavy. Okay, so talking of that, again, humor is there. Laughter and fun helps people make a serious, laughter and fun helps make a serious point. Laughter and fun. Do you know that it has been found when people laugh, they are learning doubles, literally. Their capacity to learn doubles. Have you heard of Bill Johnson? Bill Johnson cracks jokes at the beginning of every sermon. Scripted, written ones. He takes a moment and reads them. I love it. I love it. I wish I could imitate it. Joel Osteen does exactly the same. Yeah, he makes everybody stand. He says, before you sit down, what does it start like? There's a line he always says. Yeah, he does that. Then he says something about before you sit down or something. Yeah. So please find some fun inside your soul. Yeah. Everybody here has a sense of humor. It's a case of how deeply buried it is. Everyone needs to connect somehow, to permit yourself to find the joy of life and the fun out of things. Yeah. Please, please, because it will come out spontaneously as you're speaking. Now, some people think I'm funny. I've never known myself to be funny. But it's something that has come up, that comes up. And there are times I'm very intense and hard, at times I'm very cheeky, but it's just part of, again, you lending yourself to the passion of communication. Okay, let me try and end this, because I'm saying time management. This is an interesting one. Could you say it in 20 minutes? If so, then you deserve another 15 or 20 minutes to introduce, illustrate, and conclude. The point is this. Research shows people are optimally learning for 20 minutes. Then they begin to shut down. Now, perhaps, I don't know whether that's true about tonight. Yeah, it's partly, yeah. They say there's no hard and fast rule. It depends on whether there's a bit of humor, a bit of interaction. But when it's dry presentation, 20 minutes, that's it. But when you illustrate and humor and then that can flesh up what you are saying. But I came to a point I said, I must stop, because you feel that drop in concentration. But if you cannot summarize what you're saying in 20 minutes, you have not learned it properly, is the argument. I went to a Church of England. As a young preacher in Uganda, I was given 15 minutes. I thought, Lord, you are not in this. That I'm going to try and comply. That day was the biggest lesson of my life, because I got up and I'd always preached for 40 minutes and I delivered a sermon in 15 minutes. Were we together? No. In Tebe. I was shocked at how everything I wanted to say compressed into the time I was given. And I sat down. But it was so intense that the reverend, by the time I finished, the reverend was on the floor. Literally. He was a spirit-filled man. But there was such intensity because I feel this constraint of time. And now your whole brain, your spirit, your mind, your body, everything condensed. His message was so powerful. Even at the end, I did not know what I'd said. Because it was too much. I had to digest and condense everything. And I sat down and it was 15 minutes and the pastor was on the floor. And I thought, what have I done? But that day I learned that you can say what you have to say. Especially, this is a seminar, so it's different. But when you're dealing with an inspirational thing, you can say it in the time you're given. And 20 minutes is a watershed. Arguably, if you can't say it in 20 minutes, you don't know what you're saying. Lastly, message and structure, just to focus finally on what you say, just briefly again. Sorry, I should have changed that. I think it came right back. It has been found. Message and structure. The truth is this, message and structure is something we're going to delve into next week. I don't know whether I'm stretching you too much by wanting to talk more specifically about bringing a message, or whether I will stick to the generalities. I want next week for us to tackle service leading in a very applied sense, because that's most applied for us. I want us to also deal with how you model, how you handle your own temperament. Yeah. I want to show you 5 speaking positions and how you deliberately, intentionally avoid not communicating by collapsing into the fearsome side of you. You need to learn how to manage yourself and push yourself out. So I want to deal with that. But I would have wanted perhaps as a follow-on, for those who really want to say, Pastor, I want to think about preaching, what is involved in the preaching process. I think Pastor Andrew had a brilliant presentation that I would have loved him to bring again. So not this coming Friday, but the next month on our third time to deal with that. But basically, we want you to see messages have a structure. Every message has a structure. And you need to understand how to structure what you have to say so that you can say it and make your point. You can't just get up there and shoot all over the place. There's basic structures. In summary, you normally have an introduction. Introduction is you are trying to justify why we must hear you and why this subject has to be heard. And if you can't get people to buy into your introduction, you really are playing catch up for most of the service. But you need to bring an argument in the introduction. Then you get into the body of what you're saying, defend it, argue it, present evidence, illustrate, storytell, humor, and then conclude. Yeah. Now that's a typical structure. Others are more cyclic. There are structures which are cyclic. I don't know whether you can explain. You can say, I will believe to see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. And so you are going around in a circle, but every time you say, I believe to see the goodness of God in the land of the living. Then you go to another point. We believe to see the God. So you keep coming back to the same point and you're echoing it all through the sermon. That's called a cyclic structure. Yeah? So we'll talk a little more about those for those that want to be more going into preaching and teaching and leading studies of various sorts. Any questions before we close? I've gone to 10 o'clock. 2 minutes to go. One question.
Yeah, I've got a question.
Okay. Just the one.
I need a microphone.
We need the mic.
Sorry. Oh, you need. Okay, sorry. My question is, I've seen somebody, a preacher, coming on the stage to preach with a lot of fire and passion, and they've got a good message. But in the way, a few people, they get captured or focused, and others they don't. So how do you bring, or how can that preacher bring all the congregation, at least 70%, to focus? I've seen TJ Jakes doing it, but why is it sometimes it can be difficult for other preachers?
Well, it's a tough question, but the reality is this, that I don't always see that the whole congregation connects with every message that I bring. Sometimes it's profiles, age groups. I've had discussions with, for example, Generation 2. They prefer teaching sermons than inspirational sermons. You understand the difference? Yeah, for them, it's like, nah, make it teaching. Go into, what do they call it? When you study verses, exegetical sort of delivery. When you do a study, So when you are very inspirational, it's like, nah. So there are sometimes such profiles. There are some people who are on fire and want a fire message. Others are, some people, like when there's a time we did a series here on money, and the men came to me and said, now you are preaching. I said, now? I said, now you're preaching. Because for them, there were questions financially. And we were talking about prayer and fasting. And some guys are saying, okay, I'll sit through the sermon, but I want money. And when you preach on money, the intercessors are saying, we are bored. So you just try and just be true to your text and what you feel is the point that you are carrying. I think the challenge, like you're saying, is the more people you can carry along, I guess, the better. you can say your relevance is to a particular congregation. The problem is when what you're saying takes only 20% of your people, then it's like, what's wrong there? Yeah, we try and review and make sure we're preaching from the middle ground, yeah? I think we should close, friends. Thank you so much for being here.
Quickly, I just wanted to say that possibly it's also about being in touch with your congregation,
Yeah.
and understanding the needs of your congregation and speaking to their needs.
Mm-hmm.
Because if the message is not relevant to their needs, then sometimes they tend to switch off.
Indeed. I need a record. I think I will say farewell to Facebook. Thank you guys for tuning in. Let's meet again.